fortunate then to.
We was.
Yeah.
When, as soon as he caught a fever, we literally started isolating at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So, but he's good. He went back to work on yesterday.
Okay, good.
He's
So
good.
he's feeling pretty good.
He's good.
Good.
Has the sheriff's department had, without getting specific, have they had any more cases?
Not that I know of. So we are I mean, it's hard to trace, but we just don't know where Derek, how he got it.
Well, that's the thing is, you don't know where it is.
We don't know.
No, and that's why you have to be careful.
You do.
Yeah.
Really, really careful.
You know, I was thinking, if you want to know how much we exhale, just remember, if somebody's in a room that smokes,
Yeah,
you walk in that room, you're going to smell the whole,
that's
true.
right.
That's right.
and it's so dangerous.
Yes. But he's doing really good. He actually, he didn't walk the first day he came out of the hospital, but about 3 days later, we started right back walking
Okay,
and
good.
exercising.
Good.
So last night, he walked up to 3 miles last night, so he's
The
doing
camera
it.
just went live.
You know, I started to bring my coffee cup in, and I said, wait a second. I got this mask on.
What are you going to do with your coffee, right?
I've got one. I'm just looking at it and smelling it.
My
But
brother,
the smell makes you do okay, huh,
You
Rick?
can do like,
Oh, is that?
Yeah. That's what you have to do, Chris. I just don't know.
How do you do it? Oh, up and down, Chris? I won't do anything.
my brother sent me a picture of himself standing on the balcony at a hotel with a mask on with a cigar sticking through it.
Morning.
Or Ned?
is Eric coming?
No, Eric won't be here this
Okay.
morning.
1 minute late. Is that a $50 fine or?
I'm just glad that you're always after me. I'm not the last
You don't feel bad?
No, okay, well, 50-50.
I can't say anything. It just depends on what day it is.
Oh my gosh, I don't know what it is about getting somewhere on time. It's like a personality.
You have to get up early.
You got to get an early start,
I do, it doesn't matter.
Well, I think it's 8:30. We're going to call our meeting to order. I'd like to thank our council members for agreeing to come in this morning on this call council meeting to talk about a couple of things this morning. But we'd like to welcome our council members this morning.
Yeah, especially Carrie.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good to see everyone.
Evidently, David sent her chocolate chips. I've never been
Stop telling
sent.
my personal business.
I don't know how you must have to be very deathly ill to get the chocolate chips.
Okay.
I want some.
But if you have cell phones, I ask you to turn them off at this time. And we will stand and have prayer by Councilmember Reed, pledge of allegiance first of all by Councilmember Latham, and prayer by Councilmember Reed.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you would like to pray with us, would you please remain standing? God of justice and mercy, thank you for the gift of life and the opportunity to serve the people of our city. Help us to act with character and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Help us to speak with charity and restraint. Give us a service of spirit. Remind us that we are stewards of your authority. Guide us to be the leaders of your people. Amen.
Amen. Councilmember Joyce reminded us that he couldn't be with us this morning due to a previous doctor's appointment that he had to attend to. So we're going to get right to our business this morning. Contract with Morgan CSBP, joint consent agreement. David,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the consent agreement through the Public Service Commission, and Mr. Jimmy may want to add a few things, but this is the expedited order that puts in place and allows the city of Monroe to run gas pipe in the north tip end of Morgan County to serve. I think it will eventually be 10 huge poultry houses up there. We're not in a position to serve them at the current time, so they are doing that. But this requires an amendment to the countywide safety plan for Morgan County, and that you may have seen part of that in there. What the countywide safety plan does is it just lays out how gas operations can work together within a territory safely. Just lays out the rules and regulations. This expedites the order because the gentleman that has put the investment up near High Shoals, I think, is ready or almost ready to take birds in his houses, and he needs natural gas. So I see no problem with it. Mr. Jimmy, I'm not sure if you have anything to add to that.
I'm not. It's a petition for an expedited hearing, and the main thing is what the territory is. It also will require a review of our countywide safety plan, and it's in proper legal form for the Public Service Commission to approve.
Okay. So how many business you think would be added on to this gas system?
You mean for the city of Monroe?
For the city of Monroe.
Currently, and part of that, their projections was in that this will, if you're familiar with the High Shoals area,
Mm-hmm.
and I apologize, there is a map in one of the attachments
Yes.
that shows that they will be extending their gas system down Woods Road out to Jones Woods Road from Walton County back into at High Shoals Road. This parcel where these poultry houses are just south of that intersection, and it's back off the road. You can't see this farm from the highway, from High Shoals Road. So that's the main initial customer, and they'll pick up anybody else along that road that wishes to, natural gas. It doesn't, for the plan and this to make any sense, it has to be a blocked out area. So it includes the parcels on either side of that road, all the way up to the tip end, and then back down the Appalachia River to take in this parcel. It does not include Riverwalk subdivision.
Oh,
Riverwalk
okay.
is just behind this. These houses are very close to Riverwalk.
Yeah.
This may have been the parcel that was contemplated for a pump station to be placed on the Appalachia River and a pipeline run across it. I'm not sure if this is the parcel, but it's very close to that the Walton County Water Authority wanted to do, and there was some good little bit of discussion about that among some folks. But this parcel is right next to Riverwalk. Riverwalk is still the city's territory. If in the future we saw fit to try to get up there.
Okay. So it look like our attorney has started pretty much approved this.
I would ask that you approve it. I think it is. I think the signature is the city manager,
Yes.
and if you would authorize,
That's correct.
if you would approve the form of this for it to proceed, and to authorize the manager to sign any necessary documents.
If we can get a motion from our council member, there are no questions for David on this joint consent agreement.
So moved.
Second.
There any more discussion?
Just as
Authorizing our city manager to sign it.
Yes, with authorization of our city manager.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
I'll make a comment after the vote.
Okay. Are there any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed is none. The vote unanimously. Thank you.
Just as an update, engineers are still putting together the modeling, putting together the kind of the prospectus, pro forma, whatever you want to call it, for our extension up in to the north end along the west side of the county. That's an exciting opportunity for the city's gas system. And we're moving ahead with that. Hopefully we'll have something to report to the council coming up pretty quick. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we will talk about a city hall and citywide face mask policies. And we know, I think it was Saturday, that our governor put in place. He brought this to our council, making it for council and commissioners to make decisions concerning wearing masks in public places. And we know that some people might agree and some will not agree, but we know the extent of COVID-19 and the safety of our people. And we know that someone, I think, passed away last night.
Yes, and he was 4 hours away from his loved ones just because of bed shortage at the time. The beds change every day, but the time Tony was sick, he was not able to get a bed in Athens or Augusta. So he was in South Carolina.
South Carolina,
Yeah.
you know. And
He's been there 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah. And we know there are times when we have to put politics aside and think about the safety of our peoples and the safety in our community. And my personal preference is, if some people say they can't wear a mask, that they can't be demanded to wear a mask, and that's their preferences, you know. And I know that we can't force business owners to agree with this if they have customers to come in. And if the council passed this resolution, we would encourage our business owners to allow their customers to wear a mask while they're shopping, because it not only affects them, it affects everybody. And if anybody knows how it affects you, we have a council member whose husband
Gonna speak on it.
had counsel and had to immediately be taken to the hospital. So she knows the extent of wearing a mask, and she just told us this morning that he don't know how he got it, but he ended up with it. So nobody knows who has it or where the disease is, but we know that it's out there. So I think it behoves all of us to be safe for the person,
Yeah.
for ourselves, and for the person that we're talking to. Yes, ma'am.
Can I speak on it, Mr.
Sure.
Mayor? From a personal standpoint, not from what I heard, but to have COVID-19 in your home, I think that we all need to wear a mask. I think in your business, that's your decision, but to wake up one morning with a fever on a Saturday and by Monday could not breathe, and we actually went to Athens Piedmont the second trip. I don't think they had a bed for Derek on that trip. We came back home and he developed pneumonia.
Wow.
And went back. When I called 911 on that Thursday, and they took him back to Athens Piedmont because so much was going on, I forgot that I was even in quarantine. So when I got to the emergency room to try to go in, and she asked me, was I with Lieutenant Reed? And I said, yes. She said, he's COVID positive. And I said, yes. And in a nice way, not a rude way, she said, please leave our hospital. So you have no contact with your loved ones. So I sat outside in the parking lot for 4 hours to see if they would even let him come back home, Rick. And not only that, I had no connections with anybody inside of the hospital. So I went back and asked, could they take my phone number? Because I did want them to be safe. And the other scene when I got to the hospital was unreal. It was so many people, you guys, in the emergency room, standing outside and inside. So it's real to me. I feel like the city needs to wear a mask. In the business, that is your decision, but we don't know where it came from. We don't know how Derek got it. But if we do as the CDC says, I think we'll be okay. Even in my home, we isolated completely, so I didn't see Derek. So nobody else in our home had it. But mask, I think, should be required, and that's on a personal level.
Thank you so much. And I just like to say this. if there has ever been a time that we need to rectify that we are one Morgan, let's be one Morgan together.
Yes.
And it takes all of us to try to help alleviate this disease if we can. And I think we can do it by wearing a mask and
Yes.
making it mandatory.
Well, what's so encouraging, because people often ask me, what evidence do you have that it works? I mean, there are cities and areas. When I was in New York, everybody had them. I mean, people just, you were walking on the sidewalk, you're exercising, you have a mask. But the numbers from South Carolina and from Tennessee that have a statewide mask mandate show that they've had a decrease, and our numbers are in the red right now. Isn't
They
that
are.
right, David?
Yeah.
So, according to, that our numbers have grown exponentially, and we want to do our part to alleviate the burden on the hospitals. I think that is the argument for wearing masks has always been an infrastructure argument, because if we overwhelm our hospitals, and our citizens will experience what the Atwater family experienced and not be anywhere near their loved ones.
It's terrible.
I mean, and I did not know that was going on until I just asked the right questions, and thank goodness our hospital, he had that place. I mean, if you're good, we're grateful that he was able to get the treatment he needed. But we've got to do our part to keep the burden off the hospitals, because if
Exactly.
he couldn't find a bed in Augusta, and Augusta is overrun too. I mean,
is.
my brother works in that hospital, and he has not been very vocal, but now he sees it, and it's a reality. So we don't want to get to that. Whatever we can do to mitigate without shutting down businesses, not that we could do that, but to do our part to make people understand that they are effective, and there are numbers there that are quantifiable numbers that prove it. So.
Right. And, I think we have to be mindful, too, of our healthcare professionals who sees this every single day. And those who are on the front line will tell you that this disease is real.
It's real.
It's absolutely real.
And masks do work. I drove Derek to Morgan Memorial in my little car. My car is not big, as you all know, so he was sitting beside me with the mask on, and he had on a mask. And then I drove him to Athens Piedmont the first time. So he went to the hospital 3 different times. And when I drove him to Athens Piedmont, I actually had on 2 masks because he was feeling so bad. And he had on 2. And we wore masks in our home while he was extremely sick. Even though he was isolated, the kids and I had on masks in the house. The only time my mask came off is if I was outside in my yard. And we were still 6 feet apart. The kids and I were still 6 feet apart. So masks do work.
Masks matter.
Yeah, mask matters. It does.
So I think that the public's going to want to know when they're not required. So that's on.
Right,
there's
we're going to ask our
many-
attorney
yeah,
to
go over it.
to go over this
Okay.
with us this morning.
I'll be glad to do that. There are 2 things in the packet. One was the resolution that we talked about
Mr. Jimmy, can
earlier.
you speak into the microphone, please? And to
Okay.
pull the microphone close to you.
All right.
Let's see, there you go. Sometimes it has to be right up to your.
Is that better?
That's
That's better.
better. It's for
Okay.
the people watching on.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, there, in your packet, there's a resolution which basically says that under most circumstances, if you're on city property, you'll have to wear a mask. That's one thing. The other thing is a model ordinance that was put out by drafted very carefully in accordance. It really tracks the governor's order, executive order, and if you get past all the whereases, and you get down to the now therefore, it says here that it can only be in counties where you have over 100 cases per 100,000. If you take us up to 100,000, we have 522. That's our rate
Right.
of infection. So
We're
we're
there.
permitted to use this
Yeah.
ordinance. And the other thing that I think is important is if you look under B there's a thing called entity, which is basically workplaces and businesses. And that's going to be important when you look down to see of what goes on. And basically, if you skip over to item C, well, before you get there, look at number 4, a public place is anywhere that, other than your car, your house, or an entity. So, an entity, a business, is accepted from being a public place, although they're very public places. But, a factory, an assembly plant would not be considered a public place. So everybody in an entity or a public place is going to wear a facial covering except as provided in this ordinance. So let's go to the exceptions, which is D. If you're in your car or your house, you don't have to. If you're by yourself in an enclosed space, or if you're just with your household members in an enclosed space, you don't have to wear a mask. If you have a bona fide religious objection, that's an exception. And of course, drinking or eating is an exception. And what that does is that takes care of restaurants and everywhere else where you're drinking or eating. You certainly take your mask off to do that.
Right.
The other one is, if a licensed health care provider says that if you wear a mask, it aggravates a health condition that you have, you certainly don't have to hurt yourself by putting on a mask. Probably if you're in that condition, you're going to be sheltering in place anyhow.
Yeah.
And if there are personal services that would interfere, for example, let's just say you're at the dentist where you got to have a mask off there. They can't administer. They can't clean your teeth if you got a mask on. Or if it keeps you from performing your work, you don't have to wear a mask. If a law enforcement officer gives you directions to do certain things, or for verifying your identity, for example, if you pull over speeding and you have to show your driver's license, the officer can say, take off your mask so they can compare your picture. That sort of thing. Or if you have to show your ID in a financial transaction, such as verifying yourself at a bank. Children under the age of 10 don't have to wear a mask. And if you have difficulty putting on or removing the mask without assistance, you don't have to wear one. And it says nobody is going to be denied access to a polling place because you don't have a mask.
Mr. Jimmy, can I ask, do you think that special needs children or handicapped adults would be considered under number 9? I mean, would that be the assumption for that?
Yes.
Because I know
Yes.
that there is some concern about
Right. Yeah.
that. So.
Yeah. They cut them some slack.
They could use that as their.
Yes.
Okay.
So here is another requirement. If you are an entity, if you're a business place, and you elect not to require masks in your business place, you have to post a sign on the entry so that people will know that if I go in this place, there are going to be people in here without masks. So you can elect to go in or not to go in.
So a restaurant or gym or a place of business that elects not to follow this policy has to put a sign that say, we don't require masks.
That's right.
Okay.
The sign says, this location does not consent to the enforcement of any local face covering requirement upon this property.
Okay. Will we provide those signs, David?
No, they have to
No.
put it up themselves.
They have to do them themselves?
And I was going to ask Mr. Carter, so if the council approves this ordinance, a resolution, will the city be responsible for sending the business a letter to let them know this? Because some of them might not see this.
Actually, no, but it would not be a bad idea to publish it in the paper because everybody's presumed to know the law, but, you know.
We'll push it out on email,
Right.
Which is, yeah.
stream.
Well,
or
put it on the website, I
Facebook,
think.
Right.
Yeah.
All platforms
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
push the
Right.
ordinance out, and
Right.
then the bullet points about what businesses.
Right. So at every entrance, they use an Arial font, 1-inch high letters that has that disclaimer on it.
We can probably print a bunch of them, and if
That
they
would be
wanna
great.
come
I think
by
it would be-
Yeah.
City Hall or either send it out, they can print it or whatever.
Can we do another one for our business that
Right.
says we wear a mask, or,
Yes,
you know,
mask
something
required.
simple that is uniform, that the businesses that want to enforce it,
We'll do one of
that
each.
looks good? Okay.
We'll do one of each.
Thank
yeah.
you. I think that's good too.
If they don't have the sign, it's conclusively presumed that they require it. Unless you see that sign, that business has to require a mask.
So it's more like an opt-out.
Yes. And it's really interesting on the enforcement of it. Yeah, it is an opt-out, exactly. The interesting thing about the enforcement of it is that it is a civil penalty. It's not a criminal penalty like you would for a speeding ticket or something like that, $25 to $50. And there's provisions in here for us to notify the violations of the ordinance. So it says our ordinance says even where they're not required to be worn pursuant to this ordinance, they are strongly encouraged to be. And the ordinance, of course, is effective on signing. What I did was I said, you know, okay, if we put this ordinance in, where should we put it? And what my suggestion was in an email earlier was that if you pass the ordinance, we ought to do it as an amendment to the miscellaneous provisions and penalties section. And we just add one section to the bottom of that.
So the question is, Mr. Jimmy, for people, the school system, I think it's been I don't think they have a mask mandate. I think they have a mask, they encourage masks. So with the schools,
They would be an entity.
they would be an entity, so they
accepted,
would not be required to follow our mask mandate.
But they would have to post on the doors of all the public entrances
Okay.
that they don't require it.
So, David, is there any way that we can get the signage, the blink, like the sheriff's has one of those blinking signs, so that tourists know? Because sometimes I don't think it's our citizens that are not wearing them. It's people that are coming into town and not wearing them.
What planet are they coming from, is what I want to know.
Look, I mean,
I don't.
I don't see masks a lot of
they
times in town.
They have that sign, and the only question is, pick which area you're gonna advertise.
Well,
And
so
you
that one is at the sheriff's department. So, I mean, it's a good place. Do you think Robert would let us put Madison a mask?
I'd certainly ask him.
Just so that people, when they come off the interstate, know. I mean, how do people, when they come into town, know that we're gonna be a mask mandated town, community?
Just put notice in the welcome center, and they, of course, they would, they're very careful. They've got the signs up, and if that's where they show up, we'll just do the best we can.
I know. I'm just trying to think outside the box in areas that I've been to in my travels that require them. They have, you're entering a mask zone. I mean, you know, it's just if we were statewide, we wouldn't have these kind of things, but we're not, because it's going to be different everywhere.
It's,
So.
well, it's different.
Mr. Mayor, I keep hearing the discussion, and I'm trying to figure this. So if Ingalls, they don't have to require a mask, right?
They do not.
Right. So people getting off the interstate, that's typically where they're going to be going. I believe in the mask. I wear a mask. I go around. I'm probably in Ingalls every day. I'm probably in Lowe's every day. Walmart, pretty much, because I got grandkids visiting. The people that I see in Ingalls is about 90-some% of the people wear them all the time. Lowe's, a little bit lower percentage there. Walmart is pretty good. I mean, they have signs out there saying, please wear masks to protect us and our customers and us. And I think our businesses are working to try to do that.
Yes.
They are, I think so too.
I think with us just coming out here and saying it's our city, we want to make us safe, I think that the business community is working as hard as they can to cooperate with that.
I pretty much agree with Ed. I feel like the business community is. I mean, it's the personal preference inside of a business. I even received an email last night about the school system, about mandating masks inside of the school system, but I had to quickly say I am on city council.
Yeah.
I thought it was mandated in the schools.
It
I
is
know my
not.
son's under that impression.
I think the
But-
high school's doing, I
High
think they're
school
doing
is.
well, but then after the after-hour sports, I think that kids are taking their mask on. It's not being forced
Well,
at the games.
And I was gonna ask Mayor, one of the things that I read when the governor came out with saying that we could, put mask mandates in, is with the exceptions of eating and drinking, which is covered here,
Right.
with the exception of exercising. And
Yeah.
it said if they're exercising, it wasn't required. So I think,
Right.
I don't see that in the exception list here. Maybe it's there, Mr. Carter, and I don't see it,
This-
but.
If it's a business, an entity. it's
Well, I
op-
think he's talking about jogging.
Walking or
I
jogging.
Yeah.
think would probably be covered by being outside.
Yeah.
It says in
Yeah.
11, it
Yeah.
says when
I think it's-
outdoors.
I think it's
Outdoors
safe.
with spacing.
So long as you're social
As
distance.
long as you're social distancing, man.
Right.
Well, it's not very safe to exercise or
With
walk
a mask on.
with a mask on.
It's not.
Oxygen level drops down. We should probably put a mandate in here that if you're driving a car, don't wear a mask, because there have been accidents because people get oxygen deprived and they get lightheaded and drive off the road.
That's exactly
Well,
right.
it says it's not required of a vehicle.
I know, but I see people doing it, Jim. That's,
I got you.
I'm saying we should put a mandate, don't wear it in the car.
Do not wear them.
Can we do that? You know?
No,
I don't,
think
I'm
we
just-
can.
with the
He's just-
executive
he's
order.
just
I'm just being facetious
I
on that.
understand.
Right.
I understand.
So our chief is here. What about enforcement, chief? I mean, is this gonna be an enforcement nightmare, or, I mean, how do you feel about it? You had it, and you know how bad it is. Do you need a microphone? No, do we not have one? Okay.
I believe that, I heard Mr. Carter say this would be more of a civil thing than criminal, and
Yeah.
I would think that the city's intent is to get people to wear their mask when they're in public and be safe, not so much, give people citations and fine them. So I think, even like the hands-free deal, we kind of had a grace period on that. Of course, we have a little, more safety issue here with the mask, but I think if our officers are diligent in trying to tell people if they don't have a mask on that they are required and work on it on that aspect of it, then so much a citation, that would not make it such a nightmare.
Thank you. And thank you, Bill, for being so outspoken, and Derek, too. I mean, it takes people we know that have been through it for people to be able to understand the magnitude of it. And a lot of people aren't willing to be that vulnerable and tell the truth because they don't, there's some shame associated with contracting it, unfortunately. A lot of people won't tell
They
their
don't want to.
story. So it's good when people that are celebrities like yourself.
And there's nothing to be ashamed of.
Well,
No,
I know, but there
it's
is that,
But there are some,
yeah,
yeah.
there is a shame
Yeah.
and
It's still shame there. I mean, even yesterday I walked into somewhere and we quarantined 21 days instead of 10, just to make sure that we were safe, and I saw people dodging me.
dodging
You know,
me.
they want me to touch them, and it doesn't bother me.
Right.
No,
But
you
that-
probably understand it
I
if
do.
anybody.
Yeah, you definitely don't want it. I mean, I
Yeah.
got more gray hairs than Derek, I think, 21 days.
It is kind of funny that you mentioned that, because I found out, since that I did, make it pretty well public that I
Right.
had it, a lot of other people had it, and we didn't even know that.
That's
It's
right.
like they said, well, yeah, I had it too, and other people have mentioned it since then. So
Well,
I agree with you. A lot of people, for some reason, just thought it was a stigma attached to it.
They do.
Right,
It's
that's
like
right.
there's a pariah
Yeah.
feeling, but when you came out with your Facebook post, it really shored up the notion that this is something we cannot, I mean, thank goodness that you're relatively healthy. I mean, you're healthy, obviously, but people that aren't, or that have underlying conditions of asthma and diabetes, I mean, it's a killer, and we have to do our part. If this is the only thing we can do, we have to do it. And it sends a message that we're one Morgan, like you said.
It does.
You know, and whether or not it's easy to enforce, if it's purely symbolic,
Well,
it is something we can do
Well,
to keep our numbers down.
And I really do hope that our county will also follow our lead.
Well,
you know,
I would hope they would too, and I hope we can lobby them
you know.
to make that decision, but, you know.
Best way you could get people to wear masks in Lowe's and all that place is if, when you got a purchase, you got a 3% discount, and if you didn't wear a mask, they added 3% onto it. And pretty soon, they would wear a mask in your store.
I'm sure they would.
When would this go into effect if we voted on it today, Mr. Jimmy?
Immediately.
Immediately.
Immediately. So we would have to get the word out,
Yeah.
David, as
We'll
quick as we
start
possibly
pushing,
can.
we'll start
with-
pushing this out.
With news media,
I mean,
Facebook.
Yeah.
And I know our paper's already gone out for this week. Probably get in the paper for next week as well, you know.
If we, Ken, if Colleen just did the correct font or whatever we do, and we do a couple of signs for the businesses or for the entities, could we post that on our website?
Let 'em
Something that
print
could
it,
be
yeah.
downloaded, a PDF that could be downloaded, printed, or we could pick them up at City Hall if they want to do that.
I think that'll be good.
That's
I mean,
great.
most
Yeah.
businesses have something in their window about COVID-19, whether it's reduced hours, call for appointment, please wear your mask. So this will be,
Well, and a lot of businesses are selling the mask. I think I know that some of our retail stores have very, you know,
cheeky mask.
cheeky mask, yeah.
You know.
Cheeky maybe, more than cheeky.
And is there any way, David, that we could have extra masks at City Hall and people who don't
We-
have masks
We
can drop
have
by City
masks.
Hall and
We
pick
have
up
masks.
one?
We don't have them for public consumption, you know, just to come and get them if you need them. But when they're coming into City Hall, if they're doing city business, and they don't have one, they can get one.
And I'd just like to thank our city staff who has been wearing masks.
For months now,
for
how
months
long?
now,
We, since the mayor's mandate,
Yeah.
I'm very pleased with all our departments. They've been very respectful, and as you've said, and it's been repeated many times, it's not a selfish thing you do. It's a selfless thing you do to protect. I've got very personal reasons for doing everything. I was at a big box store out of town a few weeks ago, probably a couple of months ago now, where my wife and I put on a mask, and a little boy about 6 years old asked his daddy, why are we not wearing masks? And he said, because I have common sense.
Oh,
And my
goodness.
blood pressure went to the roof, and before
Wow.
sometimes I tell people that there should be a wire between your brain and your mouth. Ken's shaking his head because he knows I said this. They should stretch that wire, and you should. But before I knew what I was saying, I said to him, and he was much bigger than me and younger, and it doesn't take much to be other than that. And I said, it's very hard for me not to take offense at what you just said. And I don't want to engage people. I don't want to judge people with that. But it was that fact that he was saying that to a very impressionable kid, and he could have taken a moment and said, you know, maybe we ought to. But I don't know. It was very personal.
I mean, what
Now,
does it
I wish I could have
hurt?
shared
Yeah.
with him, but if he comes to the hospital, my wife may be taking care of him.
Yep.
And if she's compromised, you know, in a very serious way. So that's just the personal side. I take it personally.
One thing, if I may, Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I sent pictures to the staff, and David has them. We talked in our last meeting that we got some federal money for things to combat the COVID spread. And you and David and I had a conversation yesterday, but those, in order to help the businesses still stay open and in order to further promote the safety considerations, perhaps we could look into some of those hand sanitizing stations or even perhaps the signage with maybe local folks on it that just why we wear masks and you know,
We
just
wear masks, yeah.
when we were in
Okay.
Greenville,
Yeah.
it just everywhere you went, it just kind of reminded you and gave you the opportunity to sanitize your hands, so.
Yeah.
And I thought that was good, we appreciate those pictures,
Right,
Rick, because I
right.
said, what a great gesture that was, you know, and be good for our city, David, be good for our city as well. Are there any more discussion? If not, if we could get a motion.
Do we need to take phone calls, or is that after the vote? Is there any? Do you want to wait and let people make
Well,
a comment?
let's give them a little time. yeah.
Okay. What's the number, David?
The number to call in is 706-707-8801, 706-707-8801, and we need to wait about a minute and a half because there is a delay.
While we're waiting, I can suggest the motion if anybody wants to know what the wording of the motion would be.
What's the wording, Mr. Jim?
Turn this on.
Jimmy, you saying you've got some suggested wording on this that you
I
could,
would just simply, if you would just refer to the top of it, I would just say that the motion would be that we adopt an ordinance by the mayor and council of requiring the use of masks or face coverings in public during the COVID-19 outbreak. I think that'll be satisfactory. And I have drafted, actually drafted an ordinance that I had emailed to y'all,
Yeah.
and that would be the form.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Go ahead, identify yourself and you may address the mayor and council.
This is Jean Dufort.
I would just simply, if you would just refer to the.
I
Tell her to
don't
turn
live.
Turn your computer audio down because you're getting your delay.
Yep,
Okay, thank you.
there you go. I'm not a resident of the city, but I work in the city, and I want to thank you for the consideration and discussion and timely action for this ordinance. I heard a comment by one of you, maybe Chris, that suggested that you communicate with the county. And I am particularly concerned about the upcoming elections. We go to the polls on election day in about 75 days, but we really go to the polls in just a little over 50 days for early voting. And the majority of citizens in this county who cast their ballots in person cast them within the city of Madison limits. I know it's county property, and I know you have to stay in your own lane, but I think it would be influential if council would consider communicating to the county that, in particularly with the conduct of elections, of in-person voting, and all other activities related to voting, that it would strongly encourage the county to do what it did not do for the June election, and that is certainly require masks for all personnel and encourage masks for voters. We were really not very careful during the conduct of the June election, and the November election cycle is going to be just a much bigger turnout election. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Wait again. Somebody tried to get through and there was the call waiting. See if they dial in. Question, Mr. Jimmy, if this is in public buildings, would the county, could they, like the courthouse or like the public buildings, they may say, well, we don't require it, but a public building, does this, since a lot of most of their buildings are within the city, does this ordinance cover county buildings?
it technically would, whether or not we have any jurisdiction over.
And
the
could
management
enforce it. It's,
Of who gets in and what their
well,
rules are.
could at least use
inside.
us as cover.
Exactly.
Well, they would have to put the signage out if they did not,
Right,
right?
yes,
So
they
they're
would be
under
in-
that, so, okay.
Good morning. You can address the mayor and council, and please turn the sound down on your computer.
David?
Yes.
Hi, this is Karen Wybell.
You can go ahead and address the council.
Good morning, and thank you again. I also very much, like Peter and I, appreciate what we're doing and what you're attempting to do to protect our community. I'm just mentioning really quickly, in case you haven't heard, and this is something that I had only been aware of recently, is there was a Senate bill number 359 that had passed recently, and it is more concerned with protecting businesses, I think, from being sued or when people are maybe infected, possibly by going into the premises. They're also requiring signage for each business that needs to be posted as well. And so you might want to look up that. It, again, it's very specific as to the font and what the wording has to be, but it's basically warning under Georgia law there is no liability for an injury or death of an individual entering these premises if such injury or death results from the inherent risk of contracting COVID-19. You are assuming this risk by entering these premises. So that's something, if our businesses locally don't know about, it would be helpful for that information to be looked into further and disseminated along with the signage that you're talking about doing now, which I think is helpful. And also the last comment is, I don't know who owns the One Morgan wording or imaging, and maybe if there was a way of showing as a community that we were talking about, we're all together in this, maybe that One Morgan could be designed as a logo with a mask on it as well. And then those of us that are participating and encouraging people to wear masks in our businesses could also post that. There'd be a lot of signs going on, but anyway, that's all. Thank you so
All
much
right,
for what
thank
you're
you,
doing.
Karen.
Thank you.
That's a BOE.
All right. And we can
Slogan.
ask Mr. Carter, our attorney, if he would look at House Bill 359 further.
I don't know whether 359 ever
Senate.
passed or not. It
Yeah.
might have
Senate.
been
Did it get
introduced.
signed by the governor yet, or
Did
did?
I'll have to look it up. What it
Okay.
is basically is to make people have an assumption of risk, and that's included in the thing where you put the sign on.
Yeah.
If you put the 1-inch sign up, as a matter of law, if somebody goes in, they've assumed the risk, and that's a defense to liability. So, you know,
You should have
350
thrown in slip and falls in that too. If you come in here, you're on your own.
Well, yeah. Well, you know, there's so many protections in the law that 359 was just all that was a political show. We're going to protect our business. Businesses were already protected. I'll give you an example. If somebody comes in and slips on water and they say they didn't see the water, the case is thrown out because they said if you didn't see it, how can you expect the employee to see it? So, you know, there's all kinds of assumptions of risk. But what happens is this wording here came basically out of the 359 thing about you put up a sign, that way people will know that if they go in, they might get infected.
So what is the statute of social gathering, people's gathering? What's the number of social gathering?
Well, we're still under
There's
the
not one
state,
in here.
yeah, we're still under the state emergency.
Is it 50?
Yeah,
Was it 50?
50, uh-huh.
50?
This is strictly a mask requirement.
Okay.
Is there a time limit on this? Will it expire, or it's just open-ended? We talked about that before, Jimmy, that
I have a provision in the one I drafted that when the COVID-19, when the city declares the COVID-19 over, this ordinance will be void.
But doesn't the prevalence clause in here, the
Yeah, once it
100
goes-
and 100,000 over 14 days, when we
Once-
don't meet that?
Once you get below that, it's void as a
it's
matter of
void.
law.
Right.
So-
But the ordinance stays into effect. If we have another spike, then it'll go back into effect again.
Right,
Is that-
if you just leave it on the books, that if you go back over 100
100
Per
per,
100,000.
100,000.
Do we have one ready to sign, Mr. Jimmy? Is this?
I sent an email
Is
out.
this-
I don't
I
know
mean-
how widely. it
Oh,
got
the
circulated.
mayor signs this, right? This is not, we don't have to
I
sign?
just put the mayor to sign
Okay.
it and the clerk to attest it.
Okay,
And what I did is just added a section to the miscellaneous penalties,
okay.
offenses and miscellaneous penalties section of the city code. So I think, what is it, 46 or 4315?
Good morning. You can address the mayor and council. Please turn your sound down on your device.
Okay. Hello?
Good
Okay,
morning.
Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. This is Diane Yost. I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. Does this mean that you need to wear a mask when you're on the sidewalk or when you're in town park?
Town park, yes. That's city-owned property, right?
And I think if you're outside and you've social distance
Right.
and
You don't have to.
you don't have to, and you're
Right.
exercising. There is a provision that if you're outside, as long as you're social distance, you
Social
don't have
6
to
feet.
wear them. So that would include the
Okay.
sidewalk as well.
So it's basically inside city buildings?
And businesses unless they opt out and don't require a mask.
And number
Okay.
11 says, when you're outdoors and maintaining social distancing from anyone other than individuals with whom you're cohabitating.
Right.
Okay.
So if you're on the
All right, well,
sidewalk
thank
with
you for
your
clarifying that.
Okay, we're going to post the ordinance and other information very quickly this morning.
Okay.
All
All
right,
right, thank you.
thank you.
Bye.
Mr. Mayor, I've got two very important constituents at my house. I need to get home to see my
Okay.
3-year-old
Oh,
granddaughter
yeah.
and my 6-year-old that I haven't seen. They're here, and I just,
So we're-
I don't
I'm-
want to sit here all
Are we,
day.
do we have any more phone calls? Okay, I'll move that we, adopt the ordinance requiring the use of masks or face coverings in public during the COVID-19 outbreak, I guess for 30 days, do we want to do?
No.
We don't wanna put a
Okay,
time limit
okay.
on it.
It's open.
Open-ended, all right, that's it.
Second.
Are there any more discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Opposed is none, the vote is unanimously, and that will begin
Immediately.
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 And I will prepare a final draft this morning and get it over to the mayor.
And I appreciate the governor giving us the ability to do this.
Well,
I think he saw the numbers increasing, and I think it's getting real, so,
Incoming call. You want to take for another comment?
yeah.
We can't.
You hadn't adjourned the meeting, have you?
I
Mr.
have not.
No, you can- I
We
think
just,
it-
we'll excuse
yeah.
Ed
Yeah.
since they are company.
Good morning. Good morning. You may address the mayor and council.
Yes, David, I'm watching the proceedings. Looks like you guys just voted. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. This is Rich Wall. I just wanted to say that this somewhat disappoints me with our city that, you know, we are making the this idea of one Morgan while basically from what you just clarified, this is only going to affect people inside city buildings, non-distanced on the sidewalk. It doesn't seem like this is accomplishing much, that maybe we should spend our time and effort in encouraging people to wear masks rather than using the power of government to force people to wear masks, because I think that that creates the idea that we are not one Morgan, that we are going to punish those that believe differently from us. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
Doesn't mean it's